So whoever doesn't know me, my name is Suzanne Caldwell. I am the president of the West Lancaster Hills PTO. And then I'm going to move right into fundraising. Okay. All right. Come on, Erin. Okay.
Okay, hi, I'm Erin Martin, and I'm the PTO fundraising chair. So a couple of things. We have Chick-fil-A night on November 30th, so the week after Thanksgiving, that Wednesday, is our Chick-fil-A night. And as we're getting into the holiday season, don't forget to buy gift cards. They are awesome gifts, and they go towards our percentage that we get back from Chick-fil-A. Last time in September, we earned a little over $352, so that is awesome. And also, this year it's from 4 to 10 p.m. And if you can remember to please put your receipts inside the box. We'll have some balloons so you know where the box is inside. And if you go to the drive-thru, just ask them to put it in the box for it. The Apex Fun Run was amazing. We so far have collected 87% of the money. Our goal is to collect 100%, of course. Once we have all of our collections, we will be making a profit about $41,500. Awesome. So we are asking for any outstanding pledges to be brought in by Friday. So we're sending out different forms in the Tuesday folder. So if your child has gotten one, if you can please make sure that you contact whoever's on there so that they can pay their donation. Chili's Give Back this year, it's going to be December 13th, and it's going to be from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And not during school hours, but after school hours, we'll have teachers being greeters and helping out with the wait staff. And 15% of what is made that night will come back to West Cypress Hills. So that is awesome. Last year we raised over $400. And now we have something that's kind of new to us. We joined Amazon Smile. It's your exact same Amazon account. You just have to go to smile.amazon.com and pick who you're supporting, which in this case would be the West Cypress Hills PTO. And 0.5% of all eligible purchases will come back to West Cypress Hills. This year, from July to September, we made $53.19. So it's starting. And with the holiday season coming, a lot of people, I know I shop Amazon only, so that's a great way to support your school in doing something that you already do. Thank you.
Okay. Now we've got membership. Okay.
Good morning. So currently we have 235 families who have joined this year with PTO. And so we are going to do a drawing for Spirit Wear and for a family board pack. So,
Family fun night.
Family fun night, yeah. Family fun night board pack, yeah. You read it. Okay. It's the Heminger family. I will get contact with them.
Great.
Okay. The Sager family.
We'll that Tiger Talk next week, and we'll have Donna let them know that they won. Okay, great. Okay. And before we get to Dr. Lancaster and Mr. Johnny Hill, we do have copies of our financials. So we're not going to go through them, but if anybody has any questions, Leslie Ragland is our treasurer, and she has no problem discussing that with you. So we have copies of this for you. Okay. Do you want a microphone? No. Okay. You're going to make everybody move to the center? Okay, that's perfect. So I have Dr. Lancaster and Mr. Johnny Hill here. Mr. Johnny Hill is the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Financial Services. Oh, we took it off. Okay, then that's good enough. He's the money man. I have sat through many talks with Dr. Lancaster and Mr. Hill, and they are fascinating because Texas has its own different things, and they've explained it in layman's terms, which is amazing to me. So I'm going to introduce them right now.
Thank you. I've been called many things in my day. Fascinating has never been one. All right, all of you people move over. Come on now. Good, smart people in the center already. Move over now. That's a giant screen. I'm wondering, Suzanne, can I log into Amazon and be a recipient? Can I be a 0.5%?
Are you a 501c3?
I can be.
Okay. If you put your paperwork in, you're good.
My wife's a business major. Surely she can figure that out. Man, that's a great idea. Okay, y'all. We're making the rounds this fall. PTOs, PTA meetings, homeowner association, chambers, rotaries, Lions, anybody that'll have me to talk about a possible bond election and a tax ratification election a year from now, November 17th. So I'm going to set that up. That's all we're really doing today is setting the stage for the possibility for those two elections in a year. And to do that, I'm going to talk about several things. Our enrollment, in other words, why do we need new buildings? And then to talk about a tax ratification election, I need to give you a history of school finance and the complexities of that, as well as talking about your tax bill that you get and why a TRE is important. And I want to say from the outset, I am talking as the superintendent of Lake Travis. There are nearly 1,200 school districts in Texas. There are districts that feel very differently than I do about our finance system. We are considered property wealthy. We're considered that people think we have a lot of money. I want to disabuse as many people as I can of that notion, but anything I say is going to be criticized mainly by the Senate, who doesn't agree with any of this, most of the Senate, and districts that have it a lot worse than we do. So I want to say from the outset, we are Lake Travis. We have a lot of benefits, but it's not quite as rosy as it seems. And my purpose is to tell you why we need a TRE next year. So here's our enrollment growth almost since our first year. You'll notice they're not a declining year ever. Never once. We've grown 76% in the last 10 years. It's 4,200 students. That's a lot. By comparison, our projected growth for the next number of years, here we are today, 9,800, and our demographic projections will be at 14,500 in 24-25. This puts us in the Fast Growth School Coalition. That's a legislative description. To qualify for that, school districts must have grown 2% each of the last 5 years. We grew 6.5% the last year alone. We are so far beyond the fast growth descriptor. We're probably one of the top 10 out of 1,200 fastest growing districts in the state, one of the fastest growing in the country. Now, Cy-Fair may add a lot more students than we do, but they're growing at a smaller percentage. Cy-Fair is growing very rapidly as well. The next 10 years will be 65% growth, 5,600 students compared to 76% growth over the previous 10 years. And I suspect that 14,500 is conservative, and I'll tell you why. Somebody asked our last bond election, your projections are just guesses. They can't be accurate. Our demographic study that we do every 2 years is on our website. If you're interested in that, you can find it. If you can't find it, call my office and I'll help you find it. Don't print it. It's about 150 pages long. But the way they conduct their study is explained in great detail. It's amazingly detailed. So I'm going to show you what happened 10 year ago. The first time we used this company, which is Population Survey Analyst, was in 2006. At that time, they predicted that our enrollment would be today 9283. 10 years ago, their enrollment for today was 9283. The actual enrollment is 98, right at 9800. They were off, but they were way low. That's why I think the 14,500 in the next 10 years might be conservative. They don't guarantee anything now past 5 years. We really hire them for 5-year projections. They give us 10. And those are more mathematical projections they are from year 6 to 10. But the good news is they were conservative 10 years ago. The good news for you is we're not asking you to vote on buildings for 10 years into the future. We're not buying bricks or concrete today for 2026. We're only doing that 3 to 4 years out at a time, whereas our projections are much more accurate. We're planning for schools more immediately. You want us to be thinking long term. You want us to be looking at a 10-year projection, but we're not asking you to trust those calculations today and to buy bricks and buildings and so forth today. So let me give you a rundown of how did we get into this situation where we sued the state 7 times in the last 20 years. The last time we actually lost. We won the 6 previous lawsuits the districts had sued. And won the 6 previous lawsuits. This last time, 600 districts sued the state, and we lost that lawsuit with the Texas Supreme Court. We even have one of our LT dads is on the Texas Supreme Court. I took him to lunch at Chewy's thinking that would bribe him. Neighbor didn't work. He's gone to Three Forks or Capitol Hill. These kids aren't going to graduate, though. The Robin Hood system was created in '94 to address 13 school districts at the time. That system has grown to 240 districts, including Austin, and this small now, Houston ISD. It generates an annual revenue stream of $2.7 billion compared to the lottery, which is less than half of that. The point of that is it's too big to kill. It supplements the state's contribution to public schools. They've taken that money from local schools, and the state doesn't contribute their same amount. They are now contributing $2.7 billion less than they did years ago. They've just replaced their contribution with ours now. And the key, it's like an addictive drug. You can't do without it now. You're hooked. Central districts only make up 8% of the state's 5 million student population, but we pay over 28% of the recapture budget of the state. Mainly due to our property value growth. It's very strong in Central Texas. What you may not have known at the time, but in 2006, the state compressed your local tax rate. A maximum tax rate in Lake Travis ISD in 0506 was $1.50. We were at the maximum. They cut out 1/3 of that. Your school tax rate was lowered by 1/3. That was good news for you, but we lost 1/3 of our revenue over a 2-year time period. That was to have been offset by the business margins or franchise tax. Actually, it was a $5.4 billion loss statewide to public education. It's the first time since the Gilmer-Aikens Act in 1949 that calls for, the Constitution of Texas calls for schools to be funded. First time since that act in 60 years that the state failed to adequately fund public education. It's the first time that had ever happened. The comptroller at the time said the margins of tax isn't going to make up for the 3rd loss. We knew it wasn't going to. The legislature thought it would, and it was the biggest loss to public schools in the history of schools in Texas. Because of the changes the legislature made to the finance system in '06, we've operated without any significant new revenue from the state since that time. Any increase in local revenue is offset by a reduction in state aid. And we'll come back to that statement in just a minute. There is a whole harmless funding source called ASSETAR, Additional State Aid for Tax Reduction. We could do a whole afternoon on ASSETAR alone. You would go to sleep, but suffice it to say, the benefit of the school district like Travis is significant. That is scheduled to be eliminated next year, and that will be an additional $4.4 million loss to our school district. The past 7 years alone, our enrollments increased 50%, but our operating budget has only increased 27%. Not a sustainable trend. And 600 school districts sued the state. The Supreme Court issued a ruling and said it is constitutional. It meets the requirement. It's undeniably imperfect. There's a lot of room for improvement, and we hope that you will end this ossified regime and make it better. What did the legislature hear? It's good. It's constitutional. In other words, we're done. Here's a line graph showing the change over time of local funding versus state funding. Local funding has increased 44% since 2008. The state revenue has only increased 7%. That's a very telling line graph. The difference is Robert Hood. Most of the state's money is now coming from Robert Hood, so they're not contributing. They take more money in Robert Hood, so their contribution is relatively flat. This is another way to look at that. In 2006, 10 years ago, the public versus state revenue, our contribution to our budget was relatively the same. We contributed 45%, the remainder coming about 10% from the federal government. And that was 10 years ago. Today, it is what it looks like. The bulk of the money is coming from local taxes, and much less is coming from the state. 51%. Rising costs have fallen disproportionately on local districts in the past 10 years. We're increasingly reliant on locally raised taxes to pay for education. Property owners are showing that burden. The state is relinquishing that burden. Common misconceptions. Most people, I don't know much about accounting. Johnny's a CPA. I don't know much about space travel or airline, how to run an airline, or attorneys. Most people don't know about school finance because it's boring, and they think we have lots of money, so it's no big deal. But most people think we have lots of money. They think we're adding 600 kids a year. They're bringing suitcases full of cash. Your property values have gone up. My value's gone up 35% in the last 4 years alone. 13.5% district-wide last year alone. So all of those values going up must mean lots of new money for the school district. Then you add to that new property values like Sonesta Hotel, HEB, and Torchy's Tacos, for crying out loud. That should solve all our financial woes. Torchy's and Shipley's should be solved. People think we've got lots of money. The reality is we don't have lots of money. Right off the top, we give 44% of our budget to the state in the form of recapture payments. It's $41 million for us. Last year it was 38.5%. By comparison, Eanes ISD is 59%. Highland Park is 65 or 6%. Some districts are 70%. Houston, that just came on, is about 5, 6, or 7%. Austin ISD, I think, is 20-something percent this year. So it varies by school district. We give 44% of our budget. We have a $110 million budget, but $41 million of that is gone right out the door. And we're left with 60-something million dollars. On top of that, most people don't even know this. I wish we would get credit for it, but we're one of 20% of the districts in the state that give our taxpayers a full 20% homestead exemption. What that means is, if you have a $500,000 home, you're only paying school taxes on $400,000 for that home. You get a 20% discount, a rebate. We provide that full 20%. Only 200 or so districts do that in the state out of 1,200. And here's the catchphrase. If you hear nothing else today, nothing else, this is what astonishes people most. Any increase in local values, that means my home value going up 35% in 4 years, your home value's going up, any new values being created. The hotels, Lexus car dealership, Covert is surely coming, restaurants. We'll have 14,000 new homes built in the next 10 years. Any increase in local values is offset by an almost equal reduction in state aid. The state keeps the money. We get the kids, they don't bring suitcases of cash, and any increase in values is offset. The state gives that 51% to 38%, that's the difference. We keep the values we have, but we don't get the new values that come with that growth. Here's a line graph showing our enrollment in red going up from about 7,000 kids up to over 10,000 students next year. Then the blue line going down is our combined state and local revenue divided by students, dropping from 65.50 down to about 57.50. That's a telling graph for me. You can't maintain those diverging trends over any significant period of time. Now, Hello ISD, next year, they'll still be $200 below us. They'd love to have 57.50. They'll be at 67.50 or whatever. They'll be 55.50, I think. They'll be $200 less than us. They're envious of us. I mean, there are worse places to be, but people don't realize how serious this is, and it's getting worse. A lot of times teachers will say to me, man, Leander ISD has elementary theater arts classes. Why can't we do that? Or Ames ISD has this cool incubator business Shark Tank like entrepreneurial class. Why can't we do that? The biggest difference is homestead exemption. 20% of the districts do it in Texas. No one around us except Lago Vista gives that 20% discount. I'm going to tell you what that cost us. If we completely eliminated that after I was fired by the community, that means $14 million annual bump to our budget. Now, when you accommodate for Robin Hood, it's actually $8 million. What I would recommend to the state of Texas is the problem with Robin Hood is they calculate our payment to Robin Hood on 100% of the values in our school district. We only collect 80% of the values. We've got to make a Robin Hood payment on 20% of the money we don't even collect, which costs us $3.5 million a year to settle up with the man, to pay the state their money. We've got to take money out of our operating fund. So if the state would agree to match the Robin Hood calculation with our tax collection, that'd be an $80 million annual bump to us. Man, our problems would be solved. They're not going to do it. Why? Because we're the idiots that gave the money away. That's your problem. You gave an option. It's a local decision. Why'd you do that? We're not going to. They can't give away the money. It's like crack. They've got $2.7 billion coming into Robin Hood. They can't do without that money. It is an addictive source. I'm not saying that the legislature is on crack. Hear me say that. Now, there is a law in the state of Texas that says, currently, if you give a homestead exemption, we'll give you a 50% credit back for that. It's been in place for 20 years. It's been funded once, 1 year. And since 09? 08, 09 was the one time it was funded. We'd like them to reinstate that. We're going to ask them to do that. They're going to say no. Why? Because you're the idiot that gave the money away. It's your problem. Why would we give you, we can't do without the money. You shouldn't have done that. Then the irony is, last legislative session, they removed the word optional for school districts. They locked us in. For the districts that have been giving the optional homestead exemption, they said, you can't take it away now. We're going to make you stick to it. Never mind that 80% of the districts weren't even doing it. For you 20% that are giving this money away, instead of incentivizing you, all the legislature talked about last session was tax cuts, tax cuts, tax cuts. But the districts that are giving these tax cuts were penalized by Robin Hood, and we're going to lock you in for the next 5 years. And I imagine when that's been 1 year, when 4 years go by, they'll lock us in for another 5 years. Why did they do that? It was a rider on Senate Bill 1, probably filed after midnight one night when no one's paying attention, because the state moved the homestead, the existing statewide homestead exemption from $10,000 to $15,000 to $25,000. They bumped that up. They got credit statewide for giving a tax break to everyone. Their fear was school districts who were given the OHE would remove theirs, and so it would be a wash for the taxpayers, and the state wouldn't get credit for their tax break. And so they said, we're not going to let you deny us the credit for this tax break, so we're going to lock you in, which I think is an overreach. The state said, local rule, we can do it, we can add it, we can take it away. The problem is most people don't even know they get it. Your tax bill, when it comes, doesn't say, congratulations, 20% discount on your school taxes. You don't even know it, unless you really, really know what you're looking at. And most people, we don't even get goodwill credit for it. Because if I try to take it away, I'm just raising your taxes 20%, and I'd be out of a job. Now, I don't expect you to read this. I just wanted to point out, several weeks ago, in early September, Austin Statesman invited 5 superintendents and our CFOs to come to the editorial board conference room and talk to them for an hour and a half one day about, these were Robin Hood school districts, so property wealthy school districts, and about the upcoming legislative session in school finance. And I was really surprised. First of all, they printed this editorial on a Sunday, which is the big day for editorials. It was above the fold on the main editorial page, and it was pretty critical of the system. We weren't expecting any love from the statesman, and I'll point out a handful of comments. Local taxpayers, and these are the 5 districts they invited, are taking a financial beating. Making matters worse is that much of local revenue is not staying in local districts to serve local students, but it's being recaptured. That method, while legal, enables the state to shirk its responsibility and evade accountability. It's pretty strong language. I was surprised by that. After all, it's the local people who are in the hot seat explaining why their schools are underfunded, even though we're taking in more money every year. I've had a legislator say to me a couple of years ago, man, your tax rates, your values are going up, doubled in the last 20 years. Why haven't you cut your tax rate in half? And you want to grab the lapels of this person and say, because you keep the money. I don't get to keep the money. You give me the equivalent loss in state aid. That's why. And so we're taking in more money than ever before, but we're not making more money. We're making less money than we were 10 years ago. We're getting less money than we were 10 years ago. Finally, we would urge Speaker Judge Strauss and other lawmakers to listen to the local folks to understand the pain that the system is inflicting. The recapture system was never intended to be used as a primary tool for financing public education, nor ensnare so many districts in this web, but it has. Very well put. It's never intended to be. It's $2.7 billion. It's too big to kill now. So those 5 districts, when you compare their state and local revenue divided by student, here's how those 5 districts stack up. And here we are at the bottom here, $57. Why the difference? Optional homestead exemption. No one else in that list gives that. And so we have less to spend per student. People think we have lots of money. And we actually don't have as much money as people think. So what are we going to do to make it better? We're going to lobby. When I say lobby, I mean Johnny and Mary and Holly and I are going to go down to the Capitol with our little sheet of paper and beg for money. We don't hire lobbyists. We're going to go down there with our school board members, and we visit legislators. Often you're with a 24-year-old staffer. I can get in to see Paul Workman, our guy, and Dawn Buckingham just got elected to the Senate. She's a former board member, and like Travis, Dawn will see us. Senator Buckingham will see us. But you don't make a lot of headway. Why? Because they think we have lots of money. What can we possibly be? No one in the legislature will sit down for 40 minutes to listen to me go through this thing because they think we have lots of money. So we're going to work on those several areas. The loss of ASETAR, optional homestead exemption credit, and transportation allotment. What I mean by that is the school finance system it makes the tax code look kindergarten-like. The school finance system is crazy. There are a number of formulas and allotments that make up how we get our money. One of those is the transportation allotment. There's 2 problems with the transportation allotment. The last time it was updated for inflation was 85%. School buses were about 35 grand a piece. Now they're 110 grand a piece. The second problem with transportation allotment is we don't get it because we're a Robin Hood school district. Robin Hood, Chapter 41, property wealthy districts don't get the money. If we did, it'd be about 900 grand. It's not nothing. I'll take it. But we don't even get it. We'd like to get it. And we're going to ask for it. They will say no, but we're going to ask anyway. We're also going to work with 35 districts and the local attorney out of Houston, David Thompson, to lobby TEA and the state to actually fund the 50% homestead exemption credit. That'd be $3.5 million to us. And finally, if those methods are unsuccessful, and they probably will be, we're going to be obligated to come up with a budget reduction plan. Phase 3. You didn't know maybe that we've already cut $4 million through phase 1 and phase 2. This will require us to cut an additional $4.4 million if the ASETAR funding goes away. So that's kind of our plan. Why are we talking about this today? I want our community to know about our finances and our growth, and then to set the stage for a bond election in TRE. So let's talk about your tax rate. Your school tax rate involves 2 figures. First of all, your maintenance and operation, or your M&O, that's $1.04. That's the part that used to be $1.50. The state compressed it down to $1.04, $1. That covers our daily operating, salaries, tires, diesel, utilities, insurance, light bill, crayons, photocopy paper, whatever. The first dollar out of that is set at 44%. The other 4 pennies we get to keep. When I said any increase in local value is offset by an almost equal reduction in state aid, that's the 4 pennies we get to keep, and I'll show you a little bit more about that in just a second. It makes a little bit more sense. If we didn't have the Robin Hood system, your M&O tax rate could be as low as 60 cents rather than $1.04. That's the cost to us of funding other districts in the state. Let me say, I don't disagree with Robin Hood. It is necessary. It has gone too far. I think we need a cap. We need to keep our local revenue increases. We need a transportation allotment. We need credit for the tax credit we're giving you. There's some things to fix that, but it's all expensive. The other part of your tax rate is debt service or interest in sinking, INS. That's used solely to pay off our debt. And for us, that's $36.75, and the current total tax rate is $1.4075. Without Robin Hood, it could be as low as 97 cents. If we call for a bond election, that only affects the debt service. The last bond election we had was November of 11. It was $158.5 million, and that increased your tax rate by 9 cents. If you'll stay with me to the very end today, I've got good news for you on that area. The confusing part for people when we call for bond elections is they think the 2 pots of money can be mixed. You can never take money from debt service and move it over to M&O. In other words, when we put terrazzo flooring in at West Cypress Hills, there was some criticism that $500,000 price increase for the total budget of this $26 million building. People said you could spend that money on teacher salaries. You could put in vinyl composition tile, VCT, square linoleum tiles, save $500,000 and put that money in salaries. You can't do it. You just wouldn't have installed the flooring. You would have sold $500,000 less in bonds. You can't take that money and move it anywhere else. If we hadn't built West Cypress Hills Elementary, I couldn't move $26 million over to buy buses or computers or pay teacher salaries or buy fuel. It's not allowed. We installed artificial turf at the football stadium right after I got here. That was about a $600,000 price tag. Not only was that not done out of M&O dollars, it was not done out of bond dollars. On our 2008 bond election, 2005 bond election, under Johnny's skillful management, we earned $9 million in interest on our investments. And we took $600,000 of the interest earned and installed artificial turf at the request of the previous bond advisory committee. If money's left over, they said if money's left over in the bond, we didn't even use leftover money in the bond, we used interest earnings. You can't even take that money and move it over to salaries. It has to stay totally separate. Critics of bond elections will say you shouldn't be building those buildings, you should take that money and spend it on teacher salaries and classrooms. And you can't. It is illegal. You can't do that. And that's the biggest criticism we'll get, is you shouldn't be building these fancy buildings. I like West Cypress Hills Elementary. I like Lake Travis Middle School. I like the construction we're doing. I think this floor will outlast us all. It's low maintenance. You don't wax it, you just wet mop it. That's all you do. It'll look like this 30 years from now. We will have replaced the VCT flooring 3 times since then. I think it's worth it, and our board thinks it's worth it, and that's our plan to keep going in that direction. Now, a little bit more about your M&O tax rate. In 2005, that maximum was $1.50, and Lake Travis was at $1.50. The state compressed that to $1, and we're 44% recaptured. Here's where they nerded out a little bit. They created a series of pennies. The first 4 pennies were called golden pennies, and they're golden for 2 reasons. They're not subject to recapture, and they only require a board vote to add them to your tax rate. So when the state cut our revenue by a third, nearly every district in the state went from $1.50 to $1 back up to $1.04. Everybody added those 4 pennies back because it didn't require your vote. It was easy. And you were so excited to lose the other pennies, you didn't mind getting 4 pennies back. The good news is we get to keep the 4 pennies on recapture. Then they created 2 additional silver pennies. They're less valuable, Because it requires a community vote, a tax ratification election. You have to vote to add those pennies. They're also not subject to recapture. Each penny yields $1 million for us. So 2 additional pennies would be $2 million in additional revenue for us. It's not subject to recapture. We tried to do that in 2009. We tried to add the 2 pennies, and that vote failed. The community voted it down. And so I'm going to talk to you about the good news about why we're doing it again this year and why I think you'll vote for it. Then finally, there are 11 copper pennies. There are several problems with this. It requires a community vote, but they're subject to recapture. The problem is the recapture rate goes up. For us in the state of Texas, and like Travis, our current recapture rate is 44%. If I added 1 to 11 of those pennies, that recapture rate on just those pennies would be 65%. I'm not going to ask our community to add additional pennies for revenue when I only get to keep 1/3 of that revenue. Does that make sense? We'll never go for that. Our TRE would levy these 2 additional silver pennies, and I'll show you a little bit more about that. Here's our tax rate since 0506. That's the compression from $1.50 to $1.04. Since that time, the M&O tax rate has not changed. Why? Because it can't change without a vote. You can't raise your tax rate. You've got to vote to add 2 pennies or 11 pennies. We won't ask you to add 11 pennies. Bastrop ISD just had a TRE a couple weeks ago for 13 pennies, the 2 silver and 11. And you said no, voted it all down. They're not Robin Hood. They would get to keep all of the 11 penny revenue. Their community said no. Frisco ISD had a 13 penny TRE a couple months ago. The community said no. Live within your means, back to God. The only tax rate you've seen in the last 10 or 12 years has been when we approved the bond election in November 11. The tax rate for the IS went up 9 cents. Since then, the total tax rate has not changed, and we're not planning on it to change in the next 2 years. Then, right before I'm doing this presentation for the chamber, 2 days before it, this comes out in the Durham Lake Travis View, above the full front page. Steve Jones, the city manager, says, we're going to lower your tax rate because our values have gone up so much, we can generate the same amount of money by dropping your tax rate a couple of pennies. You know, I never liked Steve Jones. I've given him a t-shirt or 2 with LT. That's gone. We're cutting that out. I know people are going to read this and go, well, if the city can do it, why can't the school district? Their values are going up too. All their values are going up. But let me remind you of the differences between us and the city of Lakeway. We are subject to 44% recapture. The city is not. They get to keep all, now their tax rate's a lot lower, but they get to keep all the money. Also, they get to keep any increase in local values. Any increase in our values is offset by 96% loss in state aid. We keep 4%, almost equal reduction in state aid. They get to keep the local value increase. That's why they can lower the tax rate. And finally, we give an optional homestead exemption. Steve Jones does not. He is not. Well, y'all don't live in Lakeway anyway, so but Steve Jones is not your friend. Okay, so all of that brings us to bond election and TRE. Our most recent bond elections, the last few, the most recent was $158.5 million, was built. The new Lake Travis Middle School, West Cypress Hills Elementary, substantial $25 million addition to Hudson Bend Middle School, renovated the high school, number of campuses, got kitchens and a roof for HVAC here and there, all kinds of things, technology upgrades and buses. The reason we buy buses now out of bond funds and not M&O funds is we can't afford it out of M&O buses. We spent $1 million on 11 buses. We bought 10, they threw one in for free. Can you believe that? They did. Surprises me. That wasn't even part of the deal. We bid on 10 and they threw an extra one in. The bus business is good. But we can't spend $1 million out of our M&O. We don't have the money. People criticize school districts for using bond funds to buy technology and school buses. The reason we do that is we can't afford it. We spent $25 million in this bond election on technology. We can't afford it because of our enrollments going this way and our revenues going this way. We can't afford it. Now, we don't amortize a school bus for 30 years like we do a school building. We pay off the school bus bonds in 10 or 12 years. We don't amortize an iPad over 30 years. We'll pay those bonds off in 5 years. People criticize that because they think we're paying that out over 30 years. We're not. but we can't afford it. We don't have the money anymore in our operating budget. What are we possibly considering for next November? Middle school number 3, we're already going to be out of space in a year or so for the 2 middle schools we have, elementary 7, and maybe elementary number 8. Our next demographic study is due January or February. We do that every 2 years. And depending on the outcome of that, we may throw in elementary 8 to boot, but probably just the 2 schools. And then, again, we've just done a months-long facility assessment on 85 structures that we own, from foundations to roofs, HVAC, flooring, lighting, irrigation, fire suppression. We look at everything. We came up with a $90 million list, and we won't do all of that, but we'll prioritize that down. So we'll do some kind of upgrades and renovations and repairs for our existing buildings. We'll buy school buses. We'll buy some technology out of that as well. What's the timeline for a bond election for next November? We completed our facility and technology assessment this fall. We'll present that. That's been presented to us this past couple of weeks. We will form a bond advisory committee. That's 25 or 30 people from our community and staff who will help us prioritize the buildings we need with a list of upgrades and renovations that the facility assessment, technology assessment came up with. The bond advisory committee will present that to the board in May. The board will vote on that list of projects in June and call for a bond election if they choose. We'll start making presentations like this in June through October. The election will be November. We'll sell the bonds. If the bond election is successful, we'll sell those bonds in March, and we'll open those buildings, those 2 buildings at least, August of 20. Elementary 8 would open probably several years later or whenever we needed to. And then all the other things would occur over the next several years. So replace a roof here, replace HVAC there, expand the kitchen, or do whatever. That's the tentative timeline for that. The bond advisory committee, as I said, is a handful of people, 25 to 35 people, who represent the entire community, not just your house, or your neighborhood, or your street, but the whole community. And that's sometimes hard to do. We want you to prioritize that list of needs from our assessments, and then bring a plan to the board, who will then vote on that. The board can change that or modify that in some way. They're the ultimate decision makers there. But then the community gets to vote on that package. Now, I don't expect you to read that, but I just want to show you the kind of planning we're doing for the future. The bond election I'm talking about is right here. It's 2017, middle school 2 and elementary number 3. These square boxes indicate we are getting at or near capacity. So we don't want to add a building 2 years before we're at capacity. We want the building after we're already full. You want us to make sure we need the building. We're not asking you to build buildings way out here 20 years from now. We're only asking you to commit to buildings close to it. And we got to wait for the students to actually get here. You want us to be fiscally responsible to make sure that if they quit showing up next year, we will alter this timeline. Now, you saw that chart for 30 years. They haven't ever not come. But last year, oddly, we were 150 students short of our projection. Now, we were 150 students over our projection this year. So it's hard to guess who's showing up. But we also were looking at a bond election a couple of years after that in 20 or 21. Well, we'll need some kind of high school relief. Don't know what that's going to be yet. That's not on this next bond election. We're not even talking about it yet. But we know we're going to be out of room. If our projections are accurate, we have with portable buildings, we have nearly 4,000 student capacity in our current high school. We'll reach that in 22 and 23. So we'll need a bond election here to open the building there. It takes 24 months to build a $100 million high school. We'd also need elementary number 8 or out there. And then way down the road, we're not doing anything about this yet, but way down the road, we'll need middle school 4 and elementary 9, 10, 11, if the students show up. The good news is we change our enrollment figures every 2 years. This is adjusted every 2 years. We'll move them up, we'll move it back. You want us to be thinking 30 years out. The board authorized us to buy 189 acres last night for $5.4 million. 4.8 or 5.8? 4.8. Oh, really? I'm not paying attention. We bought a piece of land for nearly $5 million out on 71. We actually didn't buy it yet. We're entering into a 5-month contract negotiation period to buy a piece of land for a second for a high school program. Don't know if that'll be another 9-12 building. Don't know if it'll be a 910 in our current building, 11, 12, we're not even talking about that yet. We need the land. We're buying land for down the road. That's what you want us to do. We've got several pieces of land that we already own. That's another presentation I'll show you some other time. But this is to show you we're thinking long term. Now here's the good news. Here's the really, really good news. Our last bond election was 2011, and that caused our tax rate, prior to the bond election, our tax rate was at $1.31. When we passed the bond election, our tax rate increased 9 cents. That was for $158 million. The good news today is we can call up to $220 million in bonds. Doesn't mean we will, but we have the capacity to go up to 220, which is 40% more than the last bond, for zero change to the tax rate. I'll show you in a minute how we do that. That is an astonishing statement to make. The last bond, 158, was 9-cent tax increase to the INS side of your tax bill, your school tax bill. We can do almost double that with no change to your tax rate. What is a TRE? We must hold a TRE when it's asking voters to consider raising the tax rate beyond the 4 golden pennies. We would ask voters to consider increasing the M&O tax rate and then simultaneously decreasing the INS tax rate by the same amount. It's called a penny exchange. Through a voter-approved TRE, Lake Travis would move 2 pennies to M&O from INS. The tax rates paid by the local homeowner would not increase. However, we would see an additional $2 million in state aid. The total tax rate would remain the same, whether it's approved by the tax voters or not. Let me show you a little bit more about that. Here's our current tax rate. M&O, it's what's our daily operating expenses, $1.04. Our debt payment is $36.75. Our total tax rate is $1.47.5. If you vote for a TRE, your M&O goes up 2 pennies, INS drops 2 pennies. The total is the same, but we generate $2 million in additional revenue. If you vote against the tax rate, nothing changes except we don't get $2 million in revenue. We think that's a marketable position to be in, that it doesn't cost you any increase in your tax rate. Why wouldn't we do that? And so I spent 10 minutes on that graphic. That's for you to notice that the tax rate doesn't change whether you vote for it or not. Here's another way to look at it. Your current tax rate is $1.4075. You subtract 2 pennies, you add 2 pennies, the total stays the same. We get $2 million in revenue. What would we do with this money? Essentially, it is to offset the $4 million loss we're losing next fall. We don't even get to spend it. I can't buy textbooks or computers with it. It's just to partially fill a $4.5 million hole that's coming next year. If the legislature stays true in their course, the law is already written, ASTAR is expected to expire, that's already a done deal. They could rescind that this legislative session. We don't know, I doubt they'll do that, but if they do, I need the $2 million just to cut less from our budget. If I got to cut $4.5 million, that gets dicey. I want to use the TRE to partially address the $4 million loss they're getting. It's not additional revenue to spend on salaries for classrooms and buses. We're hoping to partly fill the $4 million hole. We'll still be left with a $2.4 million reduction to our budget. So, that's the bond election, that's the TRE. The tax rate is the same. Whether you vote for the bond election or against it, whether you vote for the TRE or against it, the tax rate stays the same. It's zero change to your tax rate. How can we do this? We have capitalized on our economic growth in the last 5 years with new construction and increasing in values. Remember, we get to keep the values on the INS side. We don't get to keep the dollars on the M&O side. That's $36.75. All of this growth builds capacity. Let me explain it this way. If you've paid off, you have an Escalade, and that is $1,200 a month. My wife won't let me have an Escalade, so I don't know how much it really costs. But I say $1,200 a month. I would really like an Escalade. If I could get that 0.5% on Amazon Smiles, I might, in 20 years, get the money. But if you've got an Escalade and you pay it off, you have capacity now in your home budget to get another car. If you're like my wife, you drive the Escalade for 20 years and you never buy another car again. Me, I want a new car every 12 months, but I married Karen, and that's not happening. But you know, in your budget, you have the capacity. Do you want to get a Ferrari, or do you need to get a Ford Escort? You know what you've got. Likewise, we have paid off a significant amount of debt early on your behalf. This year alone, we've paid an additional principal amount of $15.7 million, which has been a $9 million in interest savings to our taxpayers. Why? Because our values have gone up 35% in 4 years. We've taken that money and invested it and paid our debt down early. If your home mortgage is $1,200 a month, you pay $1,500 a month, you'll carve 10 years off the life of your loan, and $20 million in interest. Is crazy what compound interest does. Same example for us. We're paying our mortgage down early. In the last 5 years alone, we have paid principal amounts early and saved $27 million in interest by paying our debt down early. This allows us then to pay off our debt early, and it gives us more room where, and I'm not saying we're going to build Ferrari school buildings, but it gives us room to buy a new car without changing your payment in your home mortgage. By accessing these 2 additional pennies, the district can receive a part of that available state funding. In other words, we get to keep now 6%, 4 golden pennies and 2 pennies. Any increase in values, on the INS side, we get to keep, or on the M&S side, we get to keep 6% of that instead of this at 4% right now. Now, currently, we only use that to pay off our debt down early. The 2 additional pennies goes to Asatar. The INS has allowed us to save you money in interest paying by paying your mortgage down early. Reminder, here's where I'm going to lose a couple of you. I'm talking to you about your tax rate. Some of you are hearing taxes, and there's a difference. Your tax rate is not going to change. Your tax bill will change. Why? Because your home value is going to go up. Your tax bill is based on 2 things: the value of your house and the rate. And it's 5 different rates, or however many rates you pay on your bill. School taxes, county taxes, city taxes, Austin Community College, whatever you pay on your tax rate here in West Cypress Hills. The school tax rate will not change or increase. Some people are going to hear, Brad said your taxes aren't going to go up. And that's not true. If or when your home value increases, your tax bill will increase, whether your school tax rate changes or not. It will just increase by a lower amount. It's just by the value of your home, not the combined value increase and the tax rate increase. The good news is your school district tax rate will be unchanged following these 2 elections. Then 2 days after I made that presentation at the chamber meeting with the Lake Travis View reporter right here, sitting right here, and she saw that slide. Here's the 2 days later. Superintendent says taxes not increase unlikely. And we're not expected to raise your taxes. And so I emailed her and said, no. I said your tax rate increase is unlikely. She got it right at the end, and nobody ever reads the end of the article anyway. So I'm showing the slide to everyone, making a correction. Your tax rate will not change. Summary, we've got to have a bond election to keep up with our growth. We need a TRE or a penny exchange to generate $2 million to offset Asatar. Whether we have a bond election or not, and whether it passes or not, whether we have a TRE or not, and whether it passes or not, the tax rate will stay the same. That's the good news. Okay, now here's the bad news. Mary, Polly, Johnny, and I are serving Thanksgiving lunches. Some of us are at Lakeway, and Mary, Johnny, where are you going? She tomorrow. Johnny's wimping out today. We're working today, Johnny. You've got to save money. Save us money. So we've got to leave in about 15 or 20 minutes to go dash over to be at Lakeway, because Tracy Miller, our food service director, gets mad at us if we're not there on time to serve the thousands of people who are going to show up. Are y'all
Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me first say, Johnny Hill, you heard his name earlier. Holly Morris Coontz is our assistant superintendent for administrative and community services. Slight title change this summer. Mary Patton is our deputy superintendent and also in charge of our C&I curriculum department. They're all here. So what questions do you have about this information? Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak?
If Asatar does not go away, do you
The question is, there's two questions that people might ask. If acetar elimination, the only thing we can hope for with acetar is either going to drop next year completely, or they're going to let it die a natural death over 5 years. That's what we're asking for. We're not asking to even keep the money. We're asking for the money to go away at a slower rate. So, if they do that, and we don't lose $4 million next year, we would still have the TRE, first of all, because of the first part of the presentation. We need the additional revenue. We wouldn't use it to fill the $4 million loss of acetar. We might use that then for teacher salaries or something or other. We still need the $2 million in revenue. We would still have the TRE, and we would still do it, yes.
That's best case scenario.
That's best case scenario. That's a very good question, yes. What else? Yes, ma'am.
Where on Highway 71 did y'all purchase the land?
Is that public? Yeah, I guess
It
not.
will be.
We voted
It is
on
now.
this night. The land for the secondary programming is, if you go out 71, oh no, it's this
Probably
one.
that way,
Reimers Peacock Road.
Oh, yeah,
It's
Uh-huh.
actually
right there. Yeah.
Eventually, if this is 8 years away. But what's the street right here behind you?
Oh.
Right here?
Um,
Whatever that is,
No,
we would likely extend that
Go around.
across,
It might be
we
Sabina.
cut through to Hamilton Pool Road.
Yeah.
We need to help the traffic right down there.
They give you 2 ways in and out. And so we're going to charge you $1,000 a house, or we get a toll road. But we probably put middle school number 4 and a high school configuration number 2 out here on this 200 some odd acres we have.
So it's Reimers.
Reimers Peacock Road is right by the Mexican food
Montavana,
restaurant.
it's right behind Montavana.
Yeah, it's kind of a private drive. Don't go tooling around down there. They may shoot you, but I'm not kidding. But it's private property back there. It's a cattle garden. But so we bought 189 acres. We already had 43 acres for middle school number 4.
How many do you need to build? Like,
How many?
how many acres to build a high school?
We need 100 acres, 120 acres to build a high school for stadiums, football field, baseball, softball practice fields, parking.
And then how much for a middle school?
Middle school land,
Yeah.
40, 50, 60 acres.
And then elementary's 12?
Well, we'll take 12 or 13. We'd love 20 or 25.
Okay. I don't think people realize that there's
So much land.
so much land that you need to build each one. You just can't put it in.
When we finalize this deal with the Reimers estate, it would be nearly 200 acres. No, 210 or 20 acres for 2 schools, middle school 4 and high school configuration number 2. Now, don't tell anybody that. We think it might be secret. Yes, ma'am. What else?
Love the presentation.
Good. It's funny. People think we've got a lot of money, and when you listen for 30 minutes, you realize, holy cow, we're giving 60% of it away, 64% in optional homestead exemption in our budget our recapture of the state. And then you can't sustain that. If you send a Lexus car dealership or a Chevrolet car dealership, we're going to take 44% of your budget and give it to the Hugo car dealership, because they're struggling. You're going to help struggling struggling car dealerships. Then we're going to take 20% of your profits off the top as just a discount to the car buyer. And then on top of that, any increase in values and market value is offset by a reduction in your pricing. Well, they go out of business in a year. No for-profit organization can sustain that kind of finance system. It's just not possible. It's not free market. And legislators and critics of school systems say you need to tighten your belts like everyone else. Run your business like we run ours, and show me how you can tighten our belt. 82 or 3% of our budget is in salary. No for-profit organization has that kind of ratio. We're so close to the bone now. 82 or 3% of our total budget that we get to keep, the 60 some odd $1 million we get to keep, is salary. Another 10% of that, of our budget, so 92 or 3% are fixed costs, like utilities, gasoline, tires, school buses, things that we don't wheel and deal on. We are charged a rate, just like you're charged a rate. We buy tires in bulk, but we get a bulk rate that, you know, a real bus company pays. You know, we can't tighten our belt. We have 2 to 5 or 6% of our budget that we can actually control. And that is not true for the typical for-profit organization. It's hard to balance a budget on a ream of paper. We can't save money by cutting out field trips and sending less paper home, although we'd love that. But we're talking about to save money in a school district, you got to cut people. That's the only way to save money. You got to cut staff. And so if we lose Acetar and things get worse and those trend lines progress over the next 5 years, the school districts like us will be forced to talk about things like assistant principals, counselors, music, art, PE. Kindergarten's required. Music is not. High school English, too, is required. Golf team is not. The football team supports itself. I mean, they pay for the football team and most of the other sports to boot. So you probably keep football. People say, get rid of all the football coaches, it's a waste of money. Those football coaches are full-time teachers. What do we pay an assistant football coach in stipend? $6,000. You'd be saving $6,000 per person. We've still got to have that person teaching government or PE or English, whatever our coaches teach. You get rid of all the football coaches, but that saves me $6,000 times 10. That didn't do anything. People say, get rid of all the administrators. You got too many administrators. We're overpaid. They don't do anything anyway. You know what our administrative ratio is? The state measures the just administrative costs. They take our budget. They take 2 parts of our budget. They take everything spent on learning. Teacher salaries, copy paper, libraries, anything spent on learning called curriculum and instruction budget. Photocopies, certain field trips, anything that's due to learning. And they compare it to anything that's connected to administration. Salaries, conference registration, my photocopies, whatever. And they compare it, they get rid of food service, they get rid of transportation, they get rid of all other things. They compare administrative costs and total learning costs. It's called the administrative cost ratio. In the state of Texas, for districts our size, that ratio standard, the goal they set for us is 12.5%. You know what ours is? 9? A little under 9%. We're 30% below the state standard. People will tell you we have high administrative costs. Our total administrative costs are right at 4% of our total budget. That's including campus administrators. We really don't spend a lot of money. Compare that to Shell Oil or Target or the CEO and senior staff administrative costs. No business has an administrative cost ratio, if you could come up with one, of 9%. When you compare just those 2 figures, we're 30% below the state standard, for crying out loud. People think they think we have a lot of money, they think we have a lot of people, they think we got room to tighten our belt, and we don't. I challenge anybody who believes that way to actually come and spend a week with Johnny Hill. You can't do it in a day. Spend a week with Johnny Hill. There's not a better CFO in the state of Texas than Johnny Hill. Johnny's called by the governor's office to explain details. Johnny and I spent 2 hours with 2 of the governor's staff this summer. I didn't understand any of it. I just went to carry his bags. Johnny testified twice already this fall before a Senate hearing here and a House hearing there. Nobody's better at understanding the complexities of school finance. No district can say, we're going to call $220 million in bonds and we won't change your tax rate. Nobody. Districts can do 5, 10, 20 million maybe and not change your tax rate. $200 million in projects? It's because we've aggressively paid down our debt and we've given ourselves huge amounts of capacity. We won't do that in 21. We won't do that in the next bond election. But we can do it now, a year from now. And we hope our taxpayers will say, boy, that's good management of our money. We'll support a $220 million bond, or up to $220 million in bonds, because it won't affect my tax rate. And we'll support a penny exchange because it won't affect my tax rate. Whether we lose Acetar or not, it's an easier argument to make to our community that we're going to use that money to buy down the hole we're in. If we lose that hole, we still need the money because we're declining revenue on the M&O side. Why would we, if if it doesn't cost you anything, if there's a penny exchange, why wouldn't we benefit from that too? Anything else? I tend to get a little excited. At my family's weekend at College Station a couple weeks ago, one of my niece's husbands made the mistake of asking about Dallas ISD's tax ratification election. An hour later, the babies were crying. Everybody was asleep. I was all cranked up. Anyway, anything else?
I
Yes.
was just going to say, I'm assuming you're going to be doing this kind of dog and pony show for the next year, everywhere you.
I'll do this throughout the fall. I've done all the PTOs, I've done some chambers, I'm doing homeowners associations, I'm doing everywhere, and I'll do it through the spring. Then once we get past May, we'll convert this to the actual bond election. What are we asking you to vote for? What's the project list? What do you get? What does each building get? You know, all politics are local. I want to know what I'm getting in my building. And where's the new school going to be and all that kind of stuff.
So I was just going to say, I thought your presentation was fabulous, and you made a joke about spending 10 minutes on a graphic. I think everything was great. I would suggest maybe putting in one more slide that shows how lean you are running in those cost ratios of like administrative staff, total learning, that type of thing.
Yeah, I've got that slide. I've got
Possibly,
it.
just possibly because it sort of came up as an afterthought at the end
Yeah.
of our Q&A session.
There's so much material.
Yes, you have to
Yeah.
decide what's important, but
I
I think people
can't,
value that.
I can't keep most people for 40 minutes. It's
Yes.
tough, because it's
Yeah.
hard, because it's not really interesting.
Yeah.
So-
But people value that.
Yeah.
That-
We'll definitely do that next summer and fall, when we're talking about why should you trust us with this money?
Yes.
Right.
Because the criticism is, I'm not voting for this because you guys are fat
Cut the
cats.
fat, cut the
And
fat.
you need to
Yeah.
cut out, why, I mean, we'll say, well, can you vote for it because it's free?
Yeah, really.
Even if you don't like me, it's free. We had a guy the other day at one of our schools who was not, he was not an additional debt person. He thought we shouldn't be taking on more debt. But at the end of the presentation, he surprised you by saying, why wouldn't you go ahead and call a fool $220 million? He said, I'd vote for that. He said, next time if it's going to raise my taxes, I'm going to be scrutinized in the list. He said, but man, if you only need 190, go for the extra 30 million and get everything you can. And I go, okay. I mean, I love that.
Right.
A guy that started out going, I'm here to poke some holes in your argument that we shouldn't take on more debt, is going, jack it up. I mean, not without reason, but if you can ask for the money and it won't hurt our tax rate, go for all of it. Why I love that sentiment. That made him the greatest comment we've had the whole time. From a critic, who's a vocal critic.
Yes.
I mean, who's you know, show me kind of guy. And that's a good statement. I
Knowledge is
appreciate it.
power. Knowledge is power.
Okay.
Well, thanks to the PTO. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
I think she left. How's that Amanda Crane doing? Is she okay? Oh, shoot.
She's fantastic.
Crane train. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.